British, but you're not English. You will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is,
Sweden will pay African and Caribbean immigrants $34,000 to return home. Immigrants who are African and Caribbean residents, Sweden will pay $34,000 to return home. They will pay all immigrants who are in the country who want to leave $34,000 to return home.
You're British, but you're not English.
I want to claim that heritage as well. Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, black British. Of course I am. And I'm very, very proud. No one could say I wasn't, because I talk about it all the time, about my Caribbean roots. And I know the Caribbean very well. But it's to say that I'm English. Sorry? What?
You're British, but you're not English.
Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners, raised up the children to worship their images, set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them, and this shit get way deeper than your pigment. What?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, smash the like button on the way in, hit the Cash App or the PayPal if you support the mission, and let's get on with the content. These Africans are, how do I put this gently? They are a backwards people. You get colonized by Europeans. You get raped and pillaged and slaughtered, all your mineral resources extracted, and then you choose to flee to your oppressor's kingdom to help them build their country up. And now these Africans are having a bit of a wake-up call, and surprisingly, they are surprised at the racism that they are finding themselves victim of. But I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If they slaughtered you in your own country, then what did you think would happen when you went to theirs? I mean, guys, are Africans backwards, or do they just not get it? I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but where in the playbook does it say, flee to my oppressor's homeland under the guise that they're going to treat me well? Yeah, so now the UK is on fire. They are having race riots. They are saying enough is enough. Stop the boats. They are saying Africans go home. We've had enough of you. And these Africans are crying foul. Let's go ahead and take a look.
The UK is officially finished. People rioting, destroying properties, racism. What happened to this country? Such a great nation literally been turned upside down. To all the far left, this is not nationalism. This is racism. The immigrants didn't make you lose your British values or your British principles. You did it yourself. From the minute you stopped being a religious nation who feared God, that's when you destroyed yourself. Now you're looking to blame someone. You went into the homes of the immigrants. You took out all their resources. You stripped them away from having an opportunity to even be able to provide for their loved ones.
And then you thought it would be smart to move to your oppressor's kingdom. What are we talking about here? If you know they came over to your land, colonized you, raped your mama, killed your daddy, stole all your gold and riches, then why would you go to their homeland and expect them to treat you well? What part of the game is that?
And now that they're here looking for opportunity to better their life, to try to give their children a better life, You have the cheek to say that you need to get out of our country. All I see is a bunch of lowlives who are clearly unhappy with their own life, who failed even though they had the opportunity.
So if you're unaware, the UK riots are happening right now because of that 17-year-old who killed 3 girls about 5 days ago now, which is absolutely horrible. So my condolences to the family. But the main issue why conflict is happening because the media put out there that this 17-year-old is a supposed asylum seeker, a migrant, which the far right group ran with and decided to go berserk because of that. And Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, actually backed that statement at the time. But a couple of days ago, he said, oh, this is a mistake. I apologize. He's not an asylum seeker. He's born here. His parents are from Rwanda. So he's actually a British citizen. And
You see how the Africans are trying to play semantics? Yes, it is true. Initially, the UK riots were based off of a bit of misinformation. And yes, Casey, it was the Taylor Swift incident. There was some kind of Taylor Swift dance class. 3 little girls were killed with a knife by some African boy or man. I don't know. He was 16 or 18. I'm not sure. But there was some misinformation at first that said that this African was a migrant. Well, it turns out he was a citizen. So what? An African still is slaying little white British girls. Of course, them European dudes is gonna be flipping shit upside down, telling you to go back home. They don't care that it was a African citizen and not a African migrant.
the far right group, they don't care. They're not trying to hear it. So they're still causing havoc and using that as an excuse to run rampage in the streets as of current. It's as if the far right group were waiting for the perfect moment to pounce and just go run rampage in the streets. They're using this, even though Keir Starmer confirmed that he's not a migrant, he's born here, that they were waiting for a time to be openly racist and to be openly marginalizing groups. Even if you're not Muslim, if you're a minority in general, you can't be in the streets, all these things. And somehow they want to correlate that we're taking their jobs, all these old things that they used to say, now bringing it up again. It's almost like they were waiting covertly under the covers to then pounce out and use this little reason of which is a mistake.
What do you mean waiting covertly under the covers? You mean like you think that there's a chance that they actually liked you and respected you? You didn't know that the whole time they were faking acceptance so that you can do the manual labor and build up their country after World War II? What? She said, well, guys, bollocks, governor. I think that maybe they were really racist all along and they were just waiting for an incident to shout their racism. Oh, you don't say. You don't say.
Calling him an asylum seeker, to then come and put this false narrative saying that all migrants are bad, migrants are the issues of this country, when in the first place it was just a mistake. It was a mistaken identity of him being a migrant. And this just goes to show the power of how social media can really push a narrative and cause problems. And the fact that Keir Starmer also backed the statement is where the issue is as well. If you're someone who's of leadership, you have to make sure that when you speak, your facts are correct. Because Keir Starmer made this little mistake, this has now led a whole group to go against a lot of people in this country simply because the Prime Minister himself decided to go with one narrative. And he now wants to apologize at this time. And it's just too late. It's too late.
Guys, am I the only one that gets a bit nauseous listening to Africans speak in a European UK accent? I mean, something about that just doesn't sit right with me. It just doesn't sit right at all.
As media journalists and as a leader, I think there should be more regulations on how they portray perpetrators, how they portray victims, what they say, and make sure it's factual, because now they're angry. Oh, the Prime Minister's now angry. Oh, these riots, these thugs, these this, these that, but you caused it because of what you said. And the media ran with it as well. So now you're going to go blaming everyone else, but you caused it with your words. They need to be more careful as a leader. You know that your words hold weight. And now you want to come and say, oh, we're so...
I don't know. Maybe instead of critiquing leaders in the UK, you should critique your own leaders in your African countries so that your African countries weren't so backwards and, poor and filled with famine and genocide. And then you wouldn't feel like you needed to flee to your oppressor's kingdom in the first place, right? Maybe if your own African politicians were on point, you could just stay home. You got dozens of African countries, a whole African continent, and y'all got shit so backwards that you think it's a better idea to flee to your colonizer's kingdom. How backwards is that?
afraid, we need to take care of the community, but you cause it with your words. As a leader, you should be more cautious. But this is what we're dealing with today, guys. It's actually so bad that it's got out of hand this much, but more of us need to be speaking out on these topics, because we can't just let things just go past our eyes and feel like it's normal. It's not normal. It's horrible. And the media, the politicians just need to do better in general. I'm not taking away from the fact that he committed a crime, and that's absolutely horrible. But when you put a false narrative out and it puts a whole other group in danger, you're doing too much right now. But yeah, that's the backstory.
Domestic terrorism. Okay, cool. Race riots. Let me tell you something. If you're over the age of 21, politics is your priority. Let me tell you again. If you're over the age of 21, politics is your priority. I don't care what you've got going on. I don't care what your passions are. I don't care what your ambitions are.
Maybe if they thought politics was a priority in their own African nations, they wouldn't have to flee on makeshift rafts and boats trying to get to Europe. Oh Lord, oh Lord. Not the African asylum seeker in the colonizer's kingdom talking down to others about how they need to be more politically involved. Okay.
Your past or your future is telling you. I don't even care what your pastor told you. This is 2024. We've got race riots. We've got mobs on our doorstep. And I don't care if it gets to the heart of London or not. The warning shots have been fired and told you that if you weren't where you were, they would have got you. They would have burned you in those hotels too. They would have burnt up your mosque and place of worship too. Now, I don't know if this is embedded Islamophobia. Now, I don't know if it's sheer ignorance. I don't know if it's capitalism has just distracted us to a point where we cannot empathize with people that even look like us. I don't even give a damn what it is, bro. But listen, you're political now. And every action or inaction will be seen through the lens as someone who is choosing not to participate, to liberate their peers. If you are over the age of 21, no one's asking you, do you understand the root cause? Do you understand the facts and figures? Your duty is to stand by honor. You see the ancestors, especially those of us who are black, who celebrate every October, saying, "Oh my God, in the face of adversity, this is what you did." Are we not facing similar things? Are we not facing similar things? The difference between us and them is that they were decisive. For us, we're sitting here. A lot of you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, if any of you guys are confused about her referencing October, the whole African diaspora has to copy Native Black Americans. And believe it or not, but in the UK, they have a Black History Month in October. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm going to look up the year. When did they create it? They created it in the UK in 1987. Yeah, 1987. All right, guys. Let's talk about it. They just want to be like us so bad, huh? Nobody wanted to be black, guys. Nobody in the world wanted to be labeled black until we made it something to admire, to revere. Oh my God, guys. We've been celebrating Black History Month in the United States since 1976. They started copying our swag in 1987. Let that sink in. Let it sink in. 10 years later, after we got Black History Month going, after we've made black something proud to be, now they're like, you know what? I think we want to have a Black History Month as well.
Hoping that it dies down in the next news cycle, or you're hoping that the usual culprits carry the burden on their backs. How did it get to a point that you can see people dying, that you can see people injured? I'm not just talking about the UK, I'm talking about all the genocides around the world, but obviously the UK is going through its own thing. When did it get to a point where you just don't care? When did it get to a point where you thought what you're going through was more than what everyone is going through? So you think the people that were in the mosque or the people that are up north that are being targeted by this racist mob, you don't think they have ambitions? You don't think they're going to work? You don't think they're trying to get their family out of poverty? You don't think they're trying to, break generational curses? Or do you think it's only you who has that storyline? Or do you not understand, in spite of that storyline, this is how our histories have been built, knowing that we've got individual pledges that we're trying to fulfill, but we owe it to the collective to make sure that even the weakest of us gets to live without fear. Now, it's easy to talk about the police and the government, and we know that. Like, listen, we know that. But us? Let me tell you something. In case you wanted to say something else and do something else, if you're over the age of 21, politics is your priority.
You keep saying that you are African Caribbean, which is fine, but how can you be African Caribbean and English? I couldn't be African. I'm English, but I certainly could not call myself African Caribbean.
You could be Irish, though. You could have Irish.
No,
you could have
I'm
a bit
not Irish.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
you could
Scottish.
be. You could be.
No, I'm not. Because I have looked my name right the way back to the Middle Ages, my maiden name, and I'm Anglo-Saxon.
Great.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Ooh, yeah, brother. Brother. Guys, it just makes my skin crawl seeing firsthand in 4K how docile and meek and servile and insecure these Africans are. Good Lord, they are not like us and we are not like them. Did he really just say, hold on? I know he didn't say that. Hold on, y'all. I got to rewind it ever so slightly. What did he just say? Did he just sound like he was begging that old British bitch? He sounded like he was begging. Why can't I be English too? Why? I want to be English.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Oh, why will I never be English? Jesus Christ. These Africans have an identity crisis. They want to be everything but African. Did you guys know that they're over there in the UK calling themselves Black British? Yeah, guys, they're trying to hijack our Black identity. Nobody was globally known as Black except for Native Black Americans. You guys were known as Africans. You guys were known as Jamaicans. You guys never used the term Black until we made it oh so fashionable. But these motherfuckers want to be everything but African now. They over there in the UK calling themselves Black British. They over there in the UK calling themselves foundational Black British. They over there in the UK begging to be accepted as English. He just said, why? Why can't I be English like you?
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African.
Ew, so insecure. Oh, really? I can't be English? Well, how about my kids? Will you accept my children as English? Oh, guys, they got no backbone. They got no bravado, no self-esteem.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is, Jean, just a little bit of history on this. Britain, 400 years ago, started going out into the world. It colonized and conquered a lot of the world. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. My parents.
Ew, guys, this literally gives me a physical sensation of nausea. I'm just, ew. Did you just start off and why does he act so docile with his broad? She's disrespecting the shit out of you. She basically said, nigga, you ain't no Englishman, go back to Africa. Without saying it, she basically said that, right? We can read between the lines. He can't, though. He said, why can't I be English? Well, how about my children? Well, you know what, ma'am? Let me give you a little history lesson. England went around and it colonized the world and subjugated. And then some of us chose to go. Did he just call that the motherland? Did he just call that the fucking mother country? You're an African. You've got a motherland. It's called the continent of Africa. And he just referred to his colonizer's kingdom as the mother country. Listen to this shit.
A lot of the world. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country.
A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. How do you go back to the mother country if first and foremost you were never there to begin with? That is not your native country of origin. So how do you go back to Britain and you view that as your mother country? What the fuck is going on, y'all? This is crazy. I wanted to just let the video play for a bit, but god damn it, I just can't hold my tongue. These motherfuckers are surely not like us. Not in the slightest, guys. Not even a little bit. This is sickening.
You're not a colleague, you a fucking colonizer. The family matter and the truth of the matter. Here was God's plan to show y'all the liar. They not like us. 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 They not like us.
Part of that generation who came from the Caribbean. When I took a DNA test, I actually had Scottish in me, probably because as a result of that.
Oh my God. Now he's trying to use a fraudulent ass DNA test to say, oh, I got a little bit of European in me. I want to be an Englishman now. I want to identify as an Englishman because my Ancestry.com DNA mouth swab said that I'm 2% Scottish.
Someone somewhere, frankly, got their leg over with one of my ancestors, and I've got Scottish blood running through me. I said that gently, but it could have been horrendous. Let's be clear about that. And here I am, having grown up in this country, have been born of this country, and actually, the truth is, it's a myth that there's one English ethnicity. There's not, because England has always been a country in which Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people have passed through. So when you say you are English, I'm not saying that doesn't mean something to you and matter hugely.
It does.
Because there are probably, as you put it, years and years, hundreds of years of experience of that. But it is to say that for me, the fact that I was born here and the fact that my sensibilities are English mean that I want to claim that heritage as well. Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, Black British. Of course I am. And I'm very, very proud. No one could say I wasn't.
What did he just say? He said because he's born and raised in Europe, he wants to, and I quote, claim that heritage as well. Oh, Jesus, Jesus. He even admitted earlier that maybe he got a little bit of Scottish blood because one of his ancestors was raped by a European. But now he's going to say he wants to claim that heritage? What?
The fact that my sensibilities are English mean that I want to claim that heritage as well. Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, Black British. Of course I am. And I'm very, very proud. No one could say I wasn't, because I talk about it all the time, about my Caribbean roots.
I wonder if you know that I know he's lying right now. Oh, you got the new Margellas? That's what's up. That's what's up. I see you. That's your BMW? That's nice. That's your girl? Golly. Okay, I see you. But I just want to know one thing. You ready? Why the fuck you lying?
Very well.
British,
but it's to say that I'm English. Sorry, what?
You're British, but you're not English.
Well, that's the point I think you're making, and I'm disagreeing with that. Tell me,
Well,
what do you think? What do you think?
If I was born in the Caribbean as a white person, I certainly wouldn't call myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid
Caribbean.
you obviously have you ever been to the Caribbean, Jean?
I haven't. No, I haven't had the fortune.
Well, then you probably don't realise that in countries like Barbados, there are significant white Caribbean populations who have been there.
And yes, Jade, he everything but an African. He gonna identify as Caribbean. He gonna identify as Black British. He gonna identify as an Englishman. Anything to get away from that African title. Damn, them Africans really don't like themselves very much, do they?
There for hundreds of years, and they are significantly more Caribbean than I am.
Well, all
Didn't
I
know
can
that,
say
did
is
you?
the whole world is polluting everybody the way it's going.
What's that phrase, polluting?
It is.
Why is it polluting, Jean?
Because you are what you are. You are where you are born.
But hang on, Jean.
Your
I don't.
inheritance.
Gene, guys, he's fighting for his life right now. He's fighting for his life. He desperately wants to convince this elderly English woman that he's just like her.
Who have been there for hundreds of years, and they are significantly more Caribbean than I am.
Well, all
Didn't
I
know
can
that,
say
did
is
you?
the whole world is polluting everybody the way it's going.
What's that phrase, polluting?
It is.
Why is it polluting, Jean?
Because you are what you are. You are where you are born.
But hang on, Jean.
Your
I don't.
inheritance.
Jean,
it's your inheritance.
Jean, I can tell that you are more senior than I am in age. So I want to be polite.
No, don't do that.
In this conversation. Well, that's how I was brought up, that you're polite to your seniors, Jean. But what I'm...
Yeah, you don't want to be polite because she's a senior. You want to be polite because she's a European. Let's call her spade a spade. Jean. I know you're a European woman, and I would love to get me one of you. So I'm going to be very, very polite as you disrespect me and say that I'm polluting your country and your culture.
Saying is the word pollution. Where's that word pollution come from? It's a very negative way.
Well, I'm sorry for that,
but it is negative. It's a negative way to describe the fact that people meet one another, they fall in love, they have kids, they move borders, sometimes through war, sometimes through economic reasons, and they become what they become when they are of that country. And just as you can be in America, and you can be African American, or you...
Oh hell no! Oh hell no! Did he just bring us into this bullshit? How is he gonna try to tether us into this bullshit? Did he just try to use us as a... No, sir, no. We are indigenous to the Americas. We are victims of paper genocide and have been reclassified for centuries. Don't you try to lump us into this weird identity issue you got, talking about, well, if African Americans can be African American, why can't I be an Englishman? Stop it, sir. Stop the cap. That's a false equivalency.
They fall in love, they have kids, they move borders, sometimes through war, sometimes through economic reasons, and they become what they become when they are of that country. And just as you can be in America, and you can be African American, or you can be Italian American.
We Aboriginals, we indigenous, we ain't got no African heritage. Stop the cap.
I think it was very informative, very educational, very knowledgeable, because you touched on some things that I was aware of, but I wasn't aware in detail. So it kind of gives like an insight to some of the things that are going on today from history. So I think it's very important to learn your genealogy. And I thank you for the information. You're showing us how to navigate through the system. It's worth 75 or maybe a little bit more to me.
Yes, as a full-time genealogist, take it from me when I say most of us do not have any African heritage, let alone African DNA. We are descendants of Aboriginals that have been reclassified post Bacon's Rebellion, 1677. Stop it with that African American. Stop it.
Be Irish American. How is it that here in England, you can only claim that Englishness effectively, Jean, if you were white?
You motherfuckers know best to do this shit outside London, because I'm telling you, dirty, stinking, blood clot hooligans this today. Bring this shit to London. Bring this shit to South, North, East, West, blood clot London. Bring it to East London. Bring it to South. Bring it to Peckham, Lewisham and Catford. And I'm telling you, you'll see a blood clot community stand the fuck up together. Because some of you don't need to get beaten the fuck up about your rioting shops. This is big 2024 and you don't want to be...
Yeah, guys, if you can't really understand what she's saying through that weird, thick Jamaican UK accent, she's basically threatening the UK race rioters and saying, hey, you bring that to my neighborhood and we'll mess you up. And I'm just sitting here looking like, damn, you got all that smoke online for these Europeans that are kicking you out of their country, but you didn't have no smoke for these Europeans that go to your ancestral homeland and subjugate you, right? The Jamaicans can't even go on their own beaches. Them Europeans own they fucking beaches, but she ain't gonna say nothing about that. But she's going to talk about the Europeans who want to kick her out of the UK, right? They just don't want to go home. They like that poor friend, like little South Park, trailer park trash Kenny, and you let Kenny come over and spend the night one night, and Kenny just don't want to go home. The next thing you know, you done killed Kenny.
Going into shops and mashing up bomber clock shops. All right, listen to me. Bring this shit over here and you'll see how a community stand the fuck up and will beat your fucking ass. Do you understand? Do not come over here. Do not come over here. I'm a done blood clot talk. Because you lot are getting bad to fucking worse now. You disgusting little piece of shit of... You little... Come over here.
Hey guys, so this is going to be a bit of a sad video. However, it is very important and it's very current. So in light of the far right riots that are taking place all across England, Britain right now, I thought this would be the perfect time to come back with another history video. Okay, so let me give you guys some backstory. Essentially, I think a few weeks ago, there was a stabbing of 3 young white girls by a black attacker. Some misinformation was
No, stop that bullshit. He wasn't a black attacker. He was a fucking Rwandan. That's an African from Rwanda. Stop this whole black shit. Stop it. The only people globally known as black are black Americans. And we're not going to share in the collective shame that you Africans are holding on to.
spread that he was Muslim. It came out later that he wasn't. He was actually Christian. And this ignited multiple far right riots, or they want to call it protests, but it's a riot across our country. The language and the rhetoric and the racism and the violence and the lynching that has been taking place, and the fact that some people think this is justifiable because immigrants are so-called taking their country is.
And guys, I promise I'm not being petty, but them Africans, them Jamaicans, that they're known to bleach their skin. And as she speaks, although she is not an ugly woman, as she speaks, I can't help but think, why is her face a few shades lighter than her arms and the rest of her? I'm just saying, is she using the bleach or is she using the bleach?
Insane. So I'm going to give you some backstory as to why England is so multicultural and some proof as to why immigrants are not taking any of your jobs. So let's get into it. So like I said, the death of those 3 young girls is not justifiable at all, and my heart goes out to the families of all those that were affected. However, we all know that the actions of one person does not represent the race of that person. Therefore, if a black person commits a crime, that does not represent every black person in the world or in the country. The same way when Daniel Angerin was stabbed, I think 2 months ago, by a white swordsman, black people did not take to the streets and start rioting and throwing bricks at white.
Because you're in Europe. And it would look real crazy for your African asses to try to start a riot in Europe where you're really hanging on by a thread as it is, where they really don't like you and they're currently purging you and they just turned all of the UK into a sundown town. Yeah, y'all really don't have the strength nor the testicular fortitude to try to start no riot in England. Y'all went over there to your oppressor's kingdom to go mow their lawn and sweep the gutters and shit.
People, because again, the one white attacker does not represent the whole white race. So from a lot of the videos that I've been seeing, it's a lot of racist white people screaming that they want their country back, they want us to go back on our boats, want us to essentially get out of their country, and why are we here in the first place? So let me tell you that. So the British Empire, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with, at its height controlled over 23% of the world population, being 412 million people. That consisted of people from Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, all over the world. So let's get that straight. Okay. Throughout colonialism and imperialism, Britain extracted wealth and resources from many of its colonies and client states.
Damn, she's cooking. I'ma let her cook. I'm a historian. She's speaking facts. No lies. Britain went and colonized. They stole your riches. But you know what's really fucked up? You know what's really ass backwards about this? Instead of demanding your riches back, you thought it'd be good to go to your ops kingdom to go work for your opposition.
Which led to Britain being the world power that we see it being today and that it was then. The British Empire was so vast at this point that it was known as the empire on which the sun never sets, because wherever you were in the world, there was somewhere that was colonized by the British. Therefore, the sun never set on the empire. They were everywhere. So essentially, by that logic, we did not come to Britain, Britain came to us. During World War II, when Britain and the Allied powers were fighting against Hitler and the Nazis, they actually enlisted millions and millions of men from the colonies.
And then you came to Britain. So what the fuck do you mean when you say Britain came to us? We didn't come to Britain. No, ma'am. Britain came to y'all dumbasses and said, hey, we need some cheap labor. Can you come over here to our country and do what we say? And y'all said yes and went to Britain. They didn't kidnap you. They didn't send you over there by force. You willingly got on a boat and left the Jamaican Islands, the Caribbean. Look it up, guys. They call this the Windrush generation. Windrush, Windrush, Windrush. They call it the Windrush generation. It's basically the generation of Caribbean African folks who decided to go work for the queen, work for the crown, instead of demanding they shit back. So backwards, ain't it?
That consisted of people from Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, all over the world. So let's get that straight, okay? Throughout colonialism and imperialism, Britain extracted wealth and resources from many of its colonies and client states, which led to Britain being the world power that we see it being today and that it was then. The British Empire was so vast at this point that it was known as the empire on which the sun never sets, because wherever you were in the world, there was somewhere that was colonized by the British. Therefore, the sun never set on the empire. They were everywhere. So essentially, by that logic, we did not come to Britain, Britain came to us. During World War II, when Britain and the Allied powers were fighting against Hitler and the Nazis, they actually enlisted millions and millions of men from the colonies to fight with Britain to help them win the war effort. I think that came to about 2 million Indian men from India and I think 1.4 million Africans from West Africa. So Britain's victory in World War II was won with the help of, guess what? Immigrants, non-white people, and that's okay. After that, many of those same soldiers that fought alongside Britain immigrated to the United Kingdom, which is why we have so many of them. Later on, in 1948, Britain was obviously suffering from the repercussions of fighting the World War. A lot of the country was destroyed from the Blitz. A lot of its men had died during the war. So what did they do? They invited Black Caribbeans from their colonies, such as Jamaica, Barbados, the list goes on, to come to England to help them rebuild the country.
And you dumbasses fell for that shit. They beat you, whip you, chain you, subjugate you, got you working plantations all in South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands. And then after World War II, they gonna say, we need some cheap labor. Let's go to these Africans that we just colonized not too long ago. Yeah, they're stupid. They love us. Yeah, I think they'll do it. And this broad is sitting up here talking, yes, they invited us to come over to build their country. And she still don't see how backwards that sounds. She still don't see how odd that is.
Invited Black Caribbeans from their colonies, such as Jamaica, Barbados, the list goes on, to come to England to help them rebuild the country.
No, Mike is the real deal. His information is real. He's a humble brother, and he's all about the information. He's not about, personal gain or personal applause, personal credit. This is about our nation. It's not about one individual, but it's about us collectively as a people. And Mike is all about that, So we stand behind the brother 100%.
This is known as the Windrush. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Windrush. A lot of us are descendants from Windrush, not myself personally, but I have a lot of Caribbean friends that are. And then Africans also came from Africa to England to also help rebuild. They were also invited in order to help boost the economy to give us the Britain that we have today. Another thing that I constantly hear from these far-right racists is that they're sick and tired of people coming over on boats and stealing these imaginary jobs. Britain is 82% white, okay? You guys are the majority. Nobody's coming over here and forcing you to speak a different language.
Where they do that at? Oh, wait, Africa? You telling me you got a whole African continent, over 50 African countries, and you choose to go to the people who subjugated you and trafficked you as slaves across the fucking world? You want to go boost their country up. You want to go help them fix their country instead of fixing your own. And you wonder why Africans are in the current predicament they're in. Getting kicked out of America, getting kicked out of the UK. Nobody really wants them in their country, and they don't even want to be in their own country. Riddle me that.
And taking and coming into your house, and that's not happening. You are 82%, the overwhelming majority. Only 14% of people living in this country were actually born abroad. So other ethnic minorities like myself and my parents were actually born here. And out of that 14%, only 0.54% are actually refugees. So you're telling me that 0.54% is overwhelmingly taking all these imaginary jobs?
Psst. No, it's a front. They just don't want your African asses in their country anymore. They hoodwinked you. They bamboozled you. They tricked you into coming to their kingdom and fixing it up. And now that it's fixed up and they're back on top, they want your ass to go back to Africa.
No, they're not. Immigrants are just an easy scapegoat for you to blame the fact that you're unemployed, lazy, have low-level skills, probably didn't reach a high level of education, and that's the real reason you can't get a job. And even if all those reasons weren't the reason you can't get a job, it is because of the years of austerity from a Tory conservative government, the reason that you can't get a job. Again, not because of immigrants.
And yes, Jade, very, very clever observation. From her extremely light foundation to artificially whiten her skin, to her contouring her nose so it doesn't look so negroid, to the way she presents herself. I mean, she's dressed like a classic, basic English chick from Essex or something, right? Nothing about her says, I'm African. I mean, we got the wig installed and everything, the rosy cheeks, you name it. I mean, this is what an identity crisis looks like. Guys, you invited us over here, like you raped and pillaged us and stole all of our gold and all of our wealth, and then you invite us here to fix your country after World War II, and now you don't want us here anymore. Wow. Damn. They are so not like us.
Sick and tired of this racist and frankly ignorant agenda that immigrants and people of color are the reason that your life is the way it is. If you have time to riot at 2 p.m. on a Monday because you're unemployed, I think that's the real reason why. Separately, the contributions that immigrants, people of color have made to this country could not be understated. So for people to even try to reduce them to cab drivers and cleaners and all of that also infuriates me. These people have contributed years and years and years to the culture of Britain, and Britain wouldn't frankly be where it is today without our contributions.
Damn, and imagine where Africa would be today if you had stayed home and contributed to fixing your own fucking continent. Damn, it's a weird flex, bro. It's a weird flex how you're trying to be like, yeah, we fixed up Europe and we made Europe a global superpower again. Why don't you stay home and do that for your countries in Africa? Guys, do you see now why it's important to do the paper trail genealogy research and see exactly from which your family hails? Or what is your heritage exactly? Because less than 4% of them Africans came to the 13 colonies during the transatlantic slave trade. Most Black Americans have Aboriginal roots. We don't descend from West African slaves. The overwhelming majority of those African slaves that were trafficked during the transatlantic slave trade, you know, they say it was 12.8 million or something like that, right? Over 40% of them went to the Caribbean. Over 60% of them went to South America, Brazil to be exact. Less than 4% came to North America. But they want to convince us that we got some distant African heritage. No, we're indigenous to these lands right here.
Mike TV. This was a really good consultation. If you're curious about your Native American history, this brother knows what he's talking about. He has a wealth of knowledge, wealth of information, and his prices is legit. So book a consultation, go through the process, and see what comes out on the other side.
And seeing my people and Asians and Muslims being targeted on the street simply for things that they can't change is honestly sickening. I pray that we see an end to this violence and this ignorance and this racism. However, that might be a bit gullible, but at least if people were more educated, they would know that the other is not the enemy. The other has never been the enemy. Muslims, people of color, Black, Asian, immigrants, they are not the problem. Anyway, this video.
Damn. She'll say everything but African, right? She said Muslim, Asian, Black, people of color. Them Africans don't want to identify as African. It's just shocking to me, guys. I thought they were proud Africans. I thought they're all Nigerian princes and princesses, and they got gold and diamonds, and everybody's, king of Wakanda and shit over there. I mean, can she even say the word African? Guys, I think we need to do an intervention. We need to sneak into her flat over in the UK, just be waiting for her in the dark when she comes home from, slaving for these British folks. And we need to just say, hey, lady, can you just say for us? Can you just verbalize? Say I'm African. Say I'm from Africa. I mean, guys, they just got such a weird identity crisis. And God damn it, the cherry on top for me during this broadcast has to be old boy who's desperately trying to convince the European old lady that he's an Englishman. He's an African Englishman, I guess.
Fine. But how can you be African, Caribbean, and English? I couldn't be African. I'm English, but I certainly could not call myself African Caribbean.
You could be Irish, though. You could have Irish.
No, I'm not Irish.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
you could
Scottish.
be. You could be.
No, I'm not. Because I have looked my name right the way back to the Middle Ages, my maiden name, and I'm Anglo-Saxon.
Great.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is, Jean, just a little bit of history on this. Britain, 400 years ago, started going out into the world. It colonized and conquered a lot of the world. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. My parents were part of that generation who came from the Caribbean. When I took a DNA test, I actually had Scottish in me, probably because as a result of that.
When you lying like that, so I'ma keep lying like that. I love when you lying like that, so I'ma keep lying like that.
The African man wants to convince us that he has Scottish heritage now. Okay. This motherfucker's the last king of Scotland looking ass. Okay.
One somewhere, frankly, got their leg over with one of my ancestors, and I've got Scottish blood running through me. I've said that gently, but it could have been horrendous. Let's be clear about that. And here I am, having grown up in this country, have been born of this country, and actually, the truth is, it's a myth that there's one English ethnicity. There's not, because England has always been a country in which Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people have passed through. So when you say you are English, I'm not saying that doesn't mean something to you and matter hugely.
It does.
Because there are probably, as you put it, years and years, hundreds of years of experience of that. But it is to say that for me, the fact that I was born here and the fact that my sensibilities are English mean that I want to claim that heritage as well. Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, Black British. Of course I am. And I'm very, very proud. No one could say I wasn't, because I talk about it all the time, about my Caribbean roots. And I know the Caribbean very well. But it's to say that I'm English. Sorry? What?
You're British, but you're not English.
Well, that's the point I think you're making, and I'm disagreeing with that. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think?
If I was born in the Caribbean as a white person, I certainly wouldn't call myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid
Caribbean.
you obviously have you ever been?
Guys, this gets worse and it don't never get better. I tell you. You know how they mentioned the Windrush generation, right? Well, the Windrush generation started about 1948. What if I told you guys that they were having race riots against Africans in the UK since as early as the 1919s? In 1919, they had a race riot trying to kick the Africans out of the UK. And guess what? A couple decades later, the Africans think it's a good idea to go over there and try to build Europe. I guess they'll never learn their lesson. I don't know.
It's June 1919. World War I is over. There's huge social unrest. The working class are angry. Ernest Mark was a seafarer from Sierra Leone in West Africa. While he was living in Liverpool, he joined the army to defend the motherland in an hour of need.
Because after all is said and done, there was Lord Kitchener pointing his finger at everybody. Your king and country want you.
Damn, say it ain't so. Yet another African that thinks that England is their motherland.
And we consider ourselves, well, that the country is our country and the king is our king. So we march along with them. The next thing we know, we're in the recruiting office.
Black and Asian people played an absolutely crucial role during World War I, as the British call for patriotic support was heard throughout the empire. Many men and women answered that call, leaving their homelands to contribute as soldiers, sailors, labourers and nurses. For example, around 1.5 million Indian soldiers and over 16,000 men from the Caribbean fought or served. In Liverpool, men who were born here and those who resided here enlisted in the armed forces.
During the war, there were a lot of jobs. Anybody can get a job at the munition factories. The color didn't mind. Black, white, yellow, green hair, everybody can work. After the job was over and they were all demobilized, the white soldiers, they seemed to forget that the black man was also in the Navy and the Army with them. And
no, the white soldiers did not forget that you guys helped them win the battle. You are what's known as a pawn. Pawns are expendable. Pawns don't get celebrated. Pawns are cannon fodder. They use your African asses as cannon fodder during World War I, and you fell for it after they recently colonized you. Then World War II comes around. Hitler done fucked up all of Europe. Now they need your African asses again to build their country, and you fall for it again. And now it's 2024, about to be 2025, and you Africans are still fleeing to the UK and crying about how they treat you. Say it ain't so, y'all. Say it ain't so.
they couldn't get the jobs. And they demanded that these black people will leave the factory so they can get in. Englishmen. These black people were savages from Africa. So the race riot started. A gang attack, and they got really mad. Some of them took off their clogs, because many used to wear clogs in those days, took off their clogs and leave him alone, leave him, he's done nothing to you. Yeah. Because they got me. You see, and all I could do was fixing my hand all over me. I couldn't fight, punching anything, punching the air, punching anything. Finally, I ran and got away from them.
Damn, so y'all go to Europe, fight for them, fight for the crown during World War I. Then you go to Europe after the war, and they harassing you, beating you, and killing you in the streets. Guys, these are the type of signs that they were displaying over there in the UK. No blacks, no dogs, no Irish. But these Africans haven't learned their lesson. They just keep on going back to Europe. They just can't get enough of that British culture and society. I don't know. Maybe they found themselves addicted to beans and toast and bland tea. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but them Africans just don't want to be in Africa, and they want to be all up in Europe.
Charles Wotton was a Bermudan seafarer, 24 years old. His boarding house was raided by police. He fled and was chased by an angry white mob into the river here, and was then pelted with stones until he drowned. The homes of black men and their families were looted and burnt.
Guys, they pelted him with stones until he drowned it. This was the race riot of 1919. So when they come to you Africans in 1948 and say, hey, come help us build our nation after World War II, why would you freely go over there if this is how they was treating you after the First World War?
Imagine the racial abuse. Imagine the hurt felt by these families, 700 of whom were marched to local police stations and fire stations and housed there for their own safety.
A friend and I, a West Indian from St. Lucia, we were going to see a friend in Brownlow Hill, Liverpool, this was. This gang spotted us. Before we know what was happening, they were chasing us. So we ran like hell. A woman opened the door. I mean, they were all white women. There were no black women in those days. So My friend and I ran around the corner into the hallway, and we found the door open. The woman shut the door, and we went upstairs. He made us a cup of tea while she looked through the window to see if everything is all right. And it wasn't long after when she said, "Okay, you can go now." Now, she saved our lives.
Damn. Will the Africans ever learn their lesson? I think not. But either way, it's not our problem. We're not a part of their strange diaspora, as they put it. This is just entertainment for us. This is just a interesting dynamic. This is just some more ammunition. So next time one of these greasy ass Africans are talking shit about Native Black Americans online, let's ask them why they keep going to the UK when there's a new race riot there every 10 to 20 years. Why don't you ask them that, guys? But don't go anywhere. As soon as this broadcast ends, there's going to be a 10-second countdown, and the next stream is going to begin automatically. I'll see you guys over there in just a second. Don't touch that dial.